Pour it, full woman, don't shake. The old lady's death is like winning the lottery. Blessed be God. That phrase does not ring in my ears right at this moment, but it is like a poisoned dagger that has already been forged, waiting only for the instant when I lower my guard to pierce this old chest. But let's go back a few hours. Oh, the smell of wet earth mixed with the aroma of lilies still clung to my old black suit. I stood in front of the door of my house with my trembling hand, putting the key in the lock. The afternoon drizzle made the atmosphere feel even more gloomy. Elizabeth, my wife, the woman who shared a bed with me for 40 years, now lay 6 feet under the cold earth at Oakwood Cemetery. I entered the house. The silence hit me like a slap. There was no longer the noise of her bustling in the kitchen, nor her humming of old tunes, nor that smell of fresh coffee with cinnamon from every afternoon. There was only a numbness left. I let myself fall into the worn armchair with my legs aching after a long day receiving visitors and empty condolences. Good Lord, this funeral had squeezed me to the last drop of strength. But in my head, the image that obsessed me the most was not the serene face of Elizabeth in the coffin, but the face of Lucas, our only son. During the whole wake, the boy walked furtively with his eyes moving from one side to another, like a thief. He cried, yes, he cried, but those tears felt strange, like tap water, and not from the heart. And his wife Sarah, my dear daughter-in-law, with those huge sunglasses that covered half her face. From time to time I saw her whisper in her husband's ear with her hand squeezing Lucas's arm, not to comfort him, but as if to give him orders. They are surely so hurt that they lost their composure. I told myself, trying to excuse the son who came from my own flesh. Don't be so suspicious, George. When losing a mother, and anyone goes crazy. My stomach growled, but I didn't feel like eating. However, I remembered Lucas. Since morning he hadn't tasted a bite other than a few sips of water. The boy has a delicate stomach, just like his mother. I have to go see how he is, I murmured, resting my hands on my knees to get up. I will take him some leftover casserole, lest he gets hungry in the night. I went down to the kitchen with difficulty and packed some hot food in a thermal lunchbox. When she was alive, Elizabeth always told me that I spoiled him too much. If you keep protecting him like that, he will never become a man, for heaven's sake. But what can you do? He is an only child, our treasure. I put on my jacket and went out to the old pickup truck. It was already completely dark. The yellowish street lights were reflected in the puddles on the cracked asphalt. I drove unconsciously, the engine roaring and breaking the silence of the neighborhood. Lucas's house is about 15 minutes from mine. It is a 2-story house, quite decent, that my wife and I bought, with the savings of a lifetime when he got married, so they can have their nest and give us grandchildren, Elizabeth said when signing the deeds. She always worried more about her son than herself. When I arrived, the house was plunged in darkness. The iron gate closed, the curtains drawn. Surely they were exhausted and fell asleep early? Or did they want privacy to mourn their mother? Poor kids. I sighed, about to turn around to leave. But then I thought, what if Lucas got a fever or fainted from pain? He is one of those who get very distressed. I decided to use the spare key that Lucas gave me when they moved in to go in and check. I would only leave the lunchbox on the kitchen table, write a little note, and leave without interrupting their sleep. I opened the gate stealthily, trying not to make noise. "Come on, this hinge needs oil," it squeaked, and made my heart skip a beat. I stood still for a few seconds, holding my breath. No movement. Good. I put the key in the lock of the front door and turned gently. It opened. Inside, the living room was dark and cold, but there was something strange. The smell. It wasn't the smell of incense or flowers like in my house. It was the smell of roast steak and the smell of strong liquor. I frowned and walked in slowly. A yellowish light came out through the crack of the kitchen door, which was ajar at the end of the hallway, and then I heard a noise. It wasn't sobs. It wasn't prayers. It was the sound of glasses clinking. Cling, and laughter. A suppressed laugh, but one that escaped full of joy. My heart was beating 1,000 miles an hour in my chest. Visitors? Who would come to bother a house in mourning at this hour? Or would they be distant relatives who had just arrived? I tiptoed to the kitchen door. My old rubber-soled shoes made no noise on the carpet. I hid in the shadows and looked through the narrow crack, and the scene before my eyes made my blood freeze. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel, William's Revenge Stories, and tell us where you are listening from in the comments below. In the illuminated kitchen there were no visitors, just Lucas and Sarah. But they didn't seem to be suffering at all. Sarah had taken off her black mourning clothes and was wearing a wine-colored silk nightgown, low-cut and provocative. On the table, instead of Mom's photo, there was a pile of papers, deeds, insurance policies, and bank statements. In the middle of the table was a bottle of top-shelf whiskey, that expensive kind. I remember very well that a month ago Lucas told his mother, "I don't have money for your heart medicine, nor enough to buy a bottle for my boss." Now that bottle was half empty. Lucas was sitting in front of his wife with his shirt unbuttoned at the chest, his face red and shaking his glass. "Pour it full, woman. Don't shake. The old lady's death is like winning the lottery. Blessed be God." Lucas's pasty voice rang out clear and loud. I was stunned. The lunchbox almost fell from my hands. I had to cover my mouth so as not to let out a choked sob. This was my son? The same one who this morning knelt crying inconsolably next to his mother's grave? Sarah laughed a tinkling laugh like silver bells but cold to the bone. She raised her glass and toasted softly with her husband's. "I told you, Lucas, what a drag, you always worrying about nothing. That the old lady died was a liberation. Liberation for her from the disease, and liberation for us from these debts that drown us." Sarah took a sip. Her red lips curled into a smile of satisfaction. She reached out and took a thick folder, patting it. "Your parents' house, the land on the outskirts, and the savings for old age. The lawyer already said it. You are an only child. Your dad is already old and senile. Sooner or later he will listen to you. Everything will be ours." Lucas nodded, his gaze lost in alcohol but shining with greed. "Yes. That guy Razor, that loan shark, threatened to cut off a finger if I didn't pay the interest next week. But now we made it. Selling Dad's house is enough to pay, and there is good money left to change cars for heaven's sake. With that old clunker you spend your time complaining, and I'm sick of it." "And what's up with your dad?" asked Sarah, with a tone that showed no concern but calculation. "That old man surely won't want to sell the house. He is very old-fashioned." Lucas let out a mocking giggle and waved his hand. "Come on. My dad is as good as bread. In a few days I cry a little. I tell him my sorrows. I tell him that the mobsters are going to kill me for debts, and he, out of pity, will sign immediately. Mom is gone. Who else does he have to lean on, if not us, if he gets stubborn?" Lucas hesitated a moment and then clicked his tongue. "Well, we put him in a government nursing home. It comes out cheap, out of sight, out of mind." Anger exploded inside me, hot as volcanic lava. I wanted to go in, flip that filthy table, and give that ungrateful son and that evil daughter-in-law a slap that would make them see stars. I wanted to scream in their faces. Her mother barely got cold, and they are already here, distributing her remains like vultures, but my feet seemed nailed to the ground. The pain was so great that it swallowed the anger, transforming it into deep disgust. I looked at the son I once carried in my arms, whom I taught to ride a bicycle, whom I fanned whole nights when he had measles. Now, in front of my eyes, I only saw a stranger, a demon with human skin. What a lack of respect. I backed away step by step. My throat felt bitter and my chest hurt, as if someone were crushing this old heart. In the kitchen, the laughter continued. "Cheers, my love, for freedom, for our rich future. Let's dance, since tonight counts as if we were dancing on her grave." That phrase from Sarah was the straw that broke the camel's back. My tears contained, until now, sprang forth, no longer from grief, but from humiliation. My wife, a woman who worked all her life, who sacrificed everything for her husband and son, received in the end the most absolute contempt on the very day of her burial. I turned around and left that house of hell. I closed the door gently, just as when I entered without noise, without leaving a trace. Only the lunchbox, with the food still warm in my hand, weighed now like a stone slab. I sat in the truck, gripping the steering wheel so hard that my knuckles turned white. My breathing was agitated, ragged. I stared at the illuminated window of that house for the last time. That yellowish light coming from the kitchen now looked like the fire of hell consuming the souls of those inside dancing on her grave. That phrase repeated in my head like a scratch tape. Damn it, how can people be so cruel? How could Elisa's blood and mine spawn such a monster? I started the engine. The roar broke the stillness of the night, but inside the house the music and laughter surely drowned out everything. They were too busy celebrating their victory to realize that the judge had just paid them a visit and sentenced them to death. I started and shot out into the rain. The water hit the windshield with fury blurry just like my mind at that moment. I didn't go home. I couldn't face the emptiness of my home with this desire to kill someone. I drove to the cemetery. The gate was closed, but the old watchman, an acquaintance of mine, seeing my truck, came running out. "Mr. George, what are you doing here at this time of night? Come on now, go rest. Your lady is already at peace." I forgot my lighter," I lied with a hoarse voice. "Let me in for just a little while, Joe. Just a little while." Joe saw my haggard and soaked appearance. He sighed and opened the gate a crack. "Quickly, sir. It's raining hard. I almost ran to Elizabeth's grave. The mound of earth was still fresh, unsettled, and the wreaths of white flowers were already beginning to wither under the rain. I collapsed on the mud, not caring that the cold water soaked my knees and skin. "Elizabeth," I whispered with a broken voice. "Honey, did you hear what they said? Did you see what they are doing?" I rested my head on the cold tombstone, my tears mixing with the rain. Forgive me for having spoiled him. Forgive me for not seeing the viper we were raising at home. Honey, you sacrificed your whole life. You saved every penny you stopped eating and dressing to buy him medicines, to pay his debts. And now he toasts over your death. I hit the ground hard, splashing mud on my face. The pain in my hand made me regain a little lucidity. No, crying here solves nothing. Elizabeth is dead. She cannot rise from the grave to slap that ungrateful son. She only has me. I am the only one who can bring her justice. I remembered Elizabeth's look in her last days in the hospital. Always sad, anxious, wanting to say something but remaining silent. Once she squeezed my hand and whispered, "George, promise me you will keep the house. Never, never sign anything to Lucas without a lawyer." At that moment I thought she was delirious from the medications. I only nodded to reassure her. She knew I murmured, looking up into the darkness. She knew everything, damn it. She knew what kind of people they are. A chill ran down my spine. Elizabeth never did anything without calculating it. She was the most cautious woman I have ever known. If she knew Lucas was such a scoundrel, she surely didn't leave without leaving something. I got up, wiping the rain from my face. My old eyes no longer had that sad look. They became cold, determined. "Very well, boys," I said to the darkness with a grave but firm voice. "You want to dance on your mother's grave? That's fine. Dad is going to play the music for you. But with this music, you are going to have to dance until your legs break, until you spit blood." I turned around and left the cemetery. My steps were no longer staggering. Every step was an affirmation of the revenge plan that was brewing in my head. I got home when the clock struck 2 in the morning. The house was still silent as a tomb, but now I didn't fear that silence any more. This silence was my ally. I changed my soaked clothes and put on my usual striped pajamas. I went to the kitchen and heated the stew I was going to take to those wretches. I ate alone in the dark, chewing, slowly swallowing each bite with difficulty, as if I were swallowing my own grudge. When I finished, I didn't go to sleep. I sat at Elizabeth's desk. Everything was just as it was the day she was hospitalized. Her reading glasses with tortoiseshell frames on the old calendar, the empty bottle of heart pills, and the house expense notebooks piled up. I started searching. I wasn't searching blindly. I was looking for clues. Elizabeth, what did you hide? What did you know? I opened every drawer. Only electricity and water receipts, old letters, cooking recipes, cut from the newspaper. Nothing strange. Could it be that I was wrong? I asked myself. Or did Elizabeth simply suffer in silence without leaving proof? I leaned back tired in the chair, scanning the room. My eyes stopped at the old sewing machine in the corner, Elizabeth's inseparable companion. Next to the machine was a blue Danish cookie tin, that tin that any mother uses to store threads and needles. Come on, the sewing kit. Elizabeth always had the habit of keeping the most important things where no one would expect. The savings, the little jewels. She hid everything there when she went out. I approached quickly and took the tin. It weighed more than normal. Shaking it gently did not make the click-clack sound of spools colliding, but a dry thud of something solid and heavy. I opened the lid. On top there was a messy layer of colored threads. Needles and buttons. I pushed them aside. Under that camouflage was a dark red velvet bag. My hands trembled as I opened the drawstring of the bag. Inside there was no gold, no cash. It was a small black leather notebook, pocket-sized with the spine worn from opening and closing so much, and a thick bundle of envelopes tied with a rubber band. I took the notebook and opened the first page. Elizabeth's slanted and careful handwriting appeared under the yellow light. If one day you read these lines, my beloved George, it means that I no longer have the strength to protect you from this storm. Please forgive me for hiding it from you. I did it because I wanted to keep for you the image of a complete family. Although in reality it was broken to pieces a long time ago, my heart squeezed. I turned to the next page. May 12th. Today Lucas came. He reeked of alcohol. He said he needed $50,000 urgently to pay a football gambling debt. He threatened that if I didn't give it to him, the collectors would come to burn down the house. I took out all the interest from the savings of this month and gave it to him. I lied to George, saying I bought vitamins. Forgive me, old man. June 20th. Sarah called. That girl screamed at me, damn stingy old woman. She told me if I was going to take the money to the grave. She wants me to sell the land the grandparents left. I refused. She cursed me, wishing I would die soon. I cried in the bathroom for an hour so you wouldn't hear me. August 15th. Today I discovered that Lucas forged my signature to ask for a loan shark loan. The amount reaches $200,000. The interest eats up everything. What am I going to do? If I tell George, he will have a heart attack. He has high blood pressure. I will have to manage alone. Every line, every word was like a hammer blow to my head. Every page of the diary was irrefutable proof of the vileness of my son and the cruelty of my daughter-in-law. Elizabeth endured all this alone. She carried the debts. She swallowed the insults. She sold her jewels little by little to fill the bottomless pit of those children's greed, just to protect me from the blow. My God, I screamed in the lonely night, hugging the notebook against my chest and sobbing. I was no longer crying from sadness, but from rage. I lived like a fool, a blind old man happy in a fake bubble that my wife maintained with blood and tears. I opened the bundle of envelopes. Inside were dozens of promissory notes, bank collection notices, transfer receipts, and even printed screenshots of threatening messages from unknown numbers to Elizabeth's phone. She kept everything she prepared for this day. At the bottom of the tin, I found another envelope carefully sealed with red wax. Outside it said, "Open when I am gone. Only you." I tore the envelope. Inside was a will, not a handwritten will in a hurry. It was a notarized will with all the official seals of the most famous law firm in the city. Dated 6 months ago. I read the content quickly, and then a bitter and cold smile slowly appeared on my lips. Turns out Elizabeth wasn't weak. She was a silent warrior. She knew she was going to die, and she knew the vultures would launch themselves to devour the assets as soon as she stopped breathing. So she set a trap, a perfect legal trap. "Very well done, my dear," I whispered, caressing my wife's signature on the paper. "You left me the sword. Now I am going to use it to cut this cancer out by the roots." It was already dawning. The weak morning light filtered through the window, illuminating my haggard face, but with eyes burning with fire. I spent the whole night reading and rereading the diary and the documents. The physical fatigue was still there, but my mind was more lucid than ever. The tearing pain of the night before had disappeared, giving way to a terrifying calm. It was the calm of a hunter sharpening his knife before entering the forest. I got up, stretched, and my bones cracked. I went to the bathroom, shaved well, and combed my gray hair to be presentable. I chose my best suit, the ash-gray one Elizabeth gave me on our 40th anniversary. I knotted my tie carefully and looked in the mirror. The man in the mirror was no longer yesterday's miserable widower. He was George the Patriarch, the one who had the power of life and death. "Let's start," I told myself. I carefully put the diary and the original will in a briefcase with a lock code. I only took copies of the debts and bank statements. First thing, the bank. I drove to the central branch where my wife and I kept our savings for years. The manager, Miss Marisol, is an acquaintance from way back. Seeing me enter, she stood up hurriedly with a face of pity. "Oh, Mr. George, my deepest condolences. Mrs. Elizabeth left us so suddenly." "Thank you, dear." I nodded, sitting in front of her and putting the briefcase on the desk. "I come for an urgent matter. I want to review all accounts in my wife's name and the joint account." "Yes, of course. Let me see right now." Marisol typed fast on her computer. A few minutes later, she looked up, frowning. "Mr. George, the situation is a bit strange. The joint savings account, the balance is almost zero." I wasn't surprised. I'd already foreseen it from the diary. "Why?" I asked with a calm voice. "There is a monthly automatic transfer order to Mr. Lucas's account. Your son and—" My God, there are many unusual cash withdrawals in the last 3 months, all with the electronic signature confirmed by phone by Mrs. Elizabeth. "How much is the total?" More than $500,000, sir. Almost the entire retirement fund." I closed my eyes. 500,000. The sweat of a lifetime. They sucked it dry, without mercy. "Marisol," I opened my eyes and looked at her intently. "I want you to do this for me, right now. Freeze everything. Cancel any automatic transfer order immediately. And most importantly," I leaned over the desk, lowering my voice, "I want you to print me the detailed statement of all those transactions, and put the official seal on it. But, according to the rules," Marisol hesitated, "I took Elizabeth's death certificate out of the briefcase and a total power of attorney that she had signed for me some time ago. Another paper I found in the sewing kit giving me absolute power over the assets if she was missing or incapacitated. These are legal documents. I am the heir and co-holder. Can you do it?" Marisol took the paper, checked it well, and nodded decisively. "Yes, sir. I will do it right now. And one other thing," I added. "If Lucas or his wife come or call, asking why they can't withdraw money—" "Understood." Marisol interrupted me intelligently. "I will tell them that the account is in the process of succession audit, according to the law, that it will take time." "Very good. Thank you, dear." The first blow was struck. I knew that in a few hours, when the blood flow was cut off, the parasites would start to squirm. Leaving the bank, I went straight to Lawyer Mendoza's office. Mendoza's my old friend, and the one who drafted Elizabeth's will. George, old friend. Mendoza gave me a hug. "I'm so sorry." "Save it for later, Mendoza." I pulled away and sat down. "Today I don't come to cry sorrows. I come to activate the will." Mendoza looked at me, understanding everything. He went to the safe and took out a sealed envelope identical to the one I found at home. "Elizabeth gave me instructions," said Mendoza, lowering his voice. "She told me that only if you came with a face of ready for war, should I show you this. If you came collapsed, I was to keep the secret a while longer, so as not to give you the coup de grace. I smiled coldly. She knew me too well. In this will, Mendoza opened the document. Elizabeth was clear. My son Lucas is permanently disinherited, due to serious moral faults, and for having received his inheritance in advance through the payments of his debts in the past. Exactly, I nodded. Mendoza, I want you to prepare the papers. I want to do the paperwork to put the whole house and assets in my name immediately, and prepare an eviction order. Evict who? Mendoza was surprised. From your house? No. I denied with an icy gaze. From the house where they live. That house is still in my wife's name and mine. I lent it to them for 10 years, but it's over. It is time for the owner to recover his property. Mendoza stared at me for a good while. Then he sighed and nodded. All right, go ahead, if you already decided. But George, isn't it too cruel? After all, he is your son. I got up and adjusted my jacket. The image of last night's party, the clink of glasses and the toast to dance on her grave, resonated in my head. Cruel? I asked with a voice light as the wind. You know, Mendoza, there are wounds that if you don't cut the rotten flesh, kill the whole body. I am not cruel. I am just doing surgery. I left the office. Outside the sun was high-strung and blinding. The hunt had begun, and the prey at this moment was surely starting to feel hungry. The world of the greedy always starts to crumble through the stomach or the wallet. For my son and my daughter-in-law, it started in an elegant restaurant downtown. I wasn't there, but I could imagine the scene as clearly as if I were watching a soap opera. Lucas and Sarah, after leaving their house party last night, surely decided to reward themselves with a luxury lunch to celebrate their bright future. Imagine it. Sarah ordering Wagyu beef, Lucas ordering a bottle of expensive red wine, laughing, planning what colors she would paint my house after putting me in the asylum, and then comes the moment of destiny. Sir, the card was declined. The waiter says it politely, but loud enough for the table next door to hear. What? No way, run it again. There's a fortune there, surely, Lucas grumbled with his face red with shame. The waiter tries again. The shrill beep of the terminal, rejecting the transaction, follows. This card doesn't go through either. Sarah, with her arrogance, surely snatched his wallet and took out the additional card Elizabeth got for her last year. Use this one. Damn useless machine. Excuse me, ma'am. This card is marked blocked and retained. I can imagine Sarah's face going from red to pale. She opens the bank app on her cell phone in a hurry, and there the number that appears is not the long row of zeros she dreamed of. It is a red sign. Account blocked. Contact your branch. At that moment at home, I was drinking a black coffee without sugar. The landline rang. I looked at the screen. It was Lucas. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. I took a sip of coffee, feeling the bitterness on my tongue. Go ahead. Keep calling, son. Silence is sometimes the cruelest answer. The ringing stopped, and it rang again immediately, this time from Sarah's cell phone. I didn't answer either. I imagined their panic, looking for cash in their pockets to pay for that lavish meal that now tasted like bile. Maybe Lucas had to leave his fake Rolex watch as collateral, or call to borrow from the friends he bragged to yesterday that he was already rich. On the 5th call, I picked up the receiver. I cleared my throat, adjusting my tone to sound old, tired, and a little shaky. Hello? Dad speaking. Dad! God damn it! What the hell is happening with the bank? Lucas shouted in my ear without saying hello without respect. I was paying, and the card is blocked. What did you do? Lucas? I asked slowly, pretending not to understand. Calm down, son. What's wrong with the bank? Mom's account. The joint account? I can't withdraw a single dollar. We are starving in the restaurant. Ah, I sighed. A long and theatrical sigh. I just found out, too. The manager called me in the morning. They say that since your mother died due to the new inheritance law, all accounts are frozen for audit. They are afraid of capital flight. Audit? Audit of what? Lucas let out a curse. How long does it take? I need money now. They say if it is fast, 3 months. If it is slow, 6, son. I am also worried. I don't know how I will pay the electricity next month. Silence on the other end. I heard Lucas's ragged breathing and Sarah's furious hissing in the background. Give me the phone. Useless. Dad, Sarah's shrill voice. You are the co-holder. Go to the bank and sign to unlock. We need urgent money to pay for yesterday's funeral expenses. You wouldn't want it said that Mom died and her children didn't have enough for the coffin. You have to give it to my daughter-in-law. She has a quick tongue and knows how to use hypocrisy to attack. I am already old Sarah, I responded weakly. My legs hurt. My eyesight fails me. And besides, the manager said, it is the law. If we take money out now, it is jail. Do you want me to go to jail? Shit! Sarah cursed and hung up abruptly. I put down the phone. The cold smile returned to my lips. 3 to 6 months? No, my children. With that will in old Mendoza's safe, you will never see a penny again. But the stomach of the debt monster doesn't wait 6 months. I knew it. And Lucas, too. Just as I predicted, cutting the money flow not only caused annoyance, it activated a time bomb. That afternoon, I found out from an old friend who lives in the same neighborhood as Lucas. He told me he saw a black SUV with tinted windows parked in front of my son's house for an hour. 2 guys tattooed up to the neck were leaning on the car smoking and staring at Lucas's windows. They were the collectors. In this country, everyone knows how loan sharks work. They don't send letters by mail. They send messages with their presence. In Lucas's house at that moment, I can imagine the scene from what I read in Elizabeth's diary. The air must have smelled of pure fear. Lucas pacing back and forth in the living room, sweating cold, even though the air conditioning was at maximum. Sarah on the sofa, biting her nails until they bled. I told you, Lucas moaned, trembling. Razor? That guy doesn't play. He sent me a message in the morning. Did your mother die? And who pays me the interest? You have 24 hours. 24 hours, Sarah. Do you understand? Well, sell something, Sarah shouted, throwing a cushion at him. Watches, chains, sell everything. I already sold everything last month. The papers for this car are also pawned. We only have the facade left. The doorbell rang. Both jumped, as if they had been given electric shocks. Lucas, pale as a corpse, backed away, tripping over the table. Don't open, he whispered, but the doorbell rang again, insistent, and then blows on the door. Bang, bang, bang. They weren't knocking. They were pounding. Lucas approached the peephole, trembling. Outside it wasn't the police nor a delivery man. It was a guy with a scar that crossed from his temple to his cheek, the right hand of the boss of the loan sharks in the area. He said nothing. He just raised a finger and passed it across his neck. Then he put an envelope under the door and left. Lucas waited for the engine to move away to open and pick up the envelope. Inside was a photo of the kindergarten where Sarah's daughter studies. The girl lives with her grandmother in the village. On the back, only a huge interest figure and the phrase, tomorrow, or money, or blood. Sarah snatched the photo. She screamed horrified and burst into tears. My daughter! Son of a bitch! They dare to mess with my daughter! Shut up! Lucas shouted at his wife the first time he dared to raise his voice at her. Fear had turned him into a cornered beast. What good is crying? We have to get money. Now. Where do we get money now? Sarah shrieked. Your dad blocked the accounts. The old man, Lucas muttered with wild eyes, the old man still has cash. Mom surely hid gold or bills at home. She was old-fashioned. She never fully trusted banks. Surely there is a secret safe. And the land, Sarah wiped her tears. Her gaze became sharp and cruel again. If we can't withdraw from the bank, let him sell the land. He is old senile. Let's go there. Right now, we use pity. And if it doesn't work... What? Lucas asked. We make him sign, whatever it takes. I was sitting at home watching the clock. 7 in the evening, it started raining again. I knew they were coming. I went to the bedroom, opened the safe, and took out the old revolver my father left me, a Colt 45. It had no bullets, and I didn't intend to shoot anyone. But the cold of the steel in my hand helped me remember. Tonight I am not their dad. I am the judge. I put the gun in the desk drawer just below the diary. Then I made myself some hot tea. I sat in the armchair and waited for the bad acting to begin. About 30 minutes later, I heard Lucas's car brake in front of my gate. They didn't ring the bell. They used their key to enter. I stayed still in the armchair, cup in hand, watching the TV turned off, reflecting the distorted image of the living room. The front door opened. Lucas and Sarah entered. They came soaked because they didn't bring umbrellas, dripping water on the wooden floor that Elizabeth always kept shiny. They looked pathetic. Lucas, with dark circles and a 3-day beard, looked 10 years older. Sarah no longer had the bearing of a grand lady from last night. Makeup running from the rain made her look like a sad clown. "Dad," Lucas said with a trembling voice and faked emotion. "Dad." I turned my head slowly and put the cup on the table with a clack. "Ah, it's you. Why didn't you let me know? With this downpour." Lucas threw himself to the ground, kneeling next to my armchair, grabbing my old hands. His were freezing and sweaty. "Dad, I am suffering a lot. I miss Mom so much he started to bawl, burying his head in my legs. If it were the me from 2 days ago, I would have caressed his head, I would have hugged him. But today I only felt disgust. I looked at the crown of his head where the hair was starting to thin, and I asked myself, why can you act so well, son?" Sarah also approached, sitting in the chair opposite, wiping her tears with a handkerchief. "Father-in-law, we come because we are worried about you. Here alone. How are you eating? Why don't you come live with us?" Sarah said, sweet as honey. "I am strong," I replied, removing my hands from Lucas's. "I'm used to this house. Here I feel your mother's warmth." But Dad Lucas raised his head, all snot and tears. "The thing is that I have a serious problem. The card block left me stuck, and the funeral home demands payment now, and the deposit for the cemetery plot. They say if we don't pay tomorrow, they will dig up Mom. A blatant and stupid lie. I paid all that in cash the very day of the funeral. But I feigned panic. What? Good God, how dare they? They are unscrupulous people," father-in-law added Sarah. "So we need urgent cash. Do you know if Mom left gold or money somewhere? Give it to us to fix this for the rest of her soul." I looked at those two faces watching me with hunger. They didn't care about Mom's soul. They cared about their own skin. Cash. I narrowed my eyes, pretending to think. Your mother had a little in the wardrobe, but I used it all to pay for medicines and the hospital. Now in the house there are only a few dollars for groceries. Lucas's face fell. Impossible. Mom always had her stash. Remember well. I remember well, I said firmly. It's all gone. Good Lord, do you know how expensive her illness was? Every month your mother told me she had to take out money to give to Lucas for his businesses. So the money flew. I shot a suggestive look at Lucas. He jumped and looked down. He knew very well where that money went. And the land in the village? Sarah asked anxiously. That land from the grandparents. Sell it, father-in-law. I know someone who pays well. Cash tomorrow. How am I going to sell the ancestors' land? I shook my head. What am I going to leave the grandchildren? Your mother told me before dying that it is not to be sold. What is said by mouth is not legally valid. Dad, Sarah raised her voice, losing patience. The living matter more than the dead. Do you want to keep the land or save your son? We are... The truth almost escaped her. Lucas interrupted her quickly. Sarah means we are under a lot of pressure. Dad signed the sale. Take it as a loan. When I do well, I will pay you back. When you do well, I smiled bitterly. How many? Then I pay you back, you asked your mother, Lucas. Have you paid any? The air in the room became tense like a violin string about to break. Lucas stared at me, surprised. His dad never spoke like that. What do you mean by that? Lucas asked, hardening his voice. I got up and walked slowly to the desk. I said, turning my back on them with my hand on the drawer with the revolver, and the diary that I have no money. The bank is closed. The land is not for sale. Get out! Are you kicking us out? Sarah jumped to her feet, knocking the teacup to the floor. Do you know what you are doing, damn it? The mask of the sweet daughter-in-law fell off, and it broke like the cup at her feet. She approached me with bloodshot eyes. Old man, don't play senile. This house, this land, by law, Lucas gets half. You have no right to keep it all. Are you going to take it to the grave? Sarah. Lucas shouted at her, but with a weak voice without authority. He was also in panic. He knew that if he left empty-handed tomorrow, he would lose a finger, or something worse. Dad! Lucas took a step. His tone changed to a veiled threat. Don't force me. Sign the sale papers. I have them ready. He took out of his jacket pocket a bundle of crumpled papers. Turns out they came prepared. A transfer of rights contract. Only my signature was missing. Sign, Dad! Lucas extended a pen to me. His hand was trembling, but he put the tip almost in my face. Sign and I give you what you want. If you want, you stay here until you die. Just sign. I looked at the pen. Then I looked into my son's eyes. There was no love there any more, only the desperation of a hunted animal. And if I don't sign, I asked with a strange calm. Lucas gritted his teeth. Then don't blame me for being a bad son. What did he intend to do? Hit me? Force me to put my fingerprint? I let out a laugh, a dry, sour laugh. Are you going to hit me, Lucas? Or are you going to kill me like you killed your mother little by little? Shut up, Lucas bellowed, throwing the papers off the table with a slap. Don't bring my mother into this. What do you know? I need money. Do you understand? I need money to live. To live? Or to support your gambling habit and your greedy wife? I shouted back, raising the volume, suddenly making them step back in fright. I no longer acted like the weak old man. I stood tall, looking straight at them. Do you think I'm blind? Do you think I'm deaf? Was the party good last night? Tasty whiskey? Dancing on her grave, you said. Why don't you dance now, huh? Lucas turned white as paper. Sarah opened her mouth with eyes like saucers. They froze. Dad, do you know? Lucas stammered. I know everything, I said, marking every syllable. I know you forged your mother's signature to ask money from loan sharks. I know your wife insulted your mother on the phone, calling her a bitch. I know everything. I hit the table hard with my palm. And you want money? Fine. Wait. I looked at them with mockery. Next week, Monday 9 in the morning at Lawyer Mendoza's office, the official reading of your mother's will be held. There you will know what you get. Will? Sarah blurted out with a broken voice. Did she leave a will? Impossible. She died suddenly. Your mother was much smarter than you think, I said. Now get out of my house. Immediately. Before I call the police to take you away for trespassing and threatening an old man. Lucas looked at me, then at Sarah. The fear in his eyes turned into terror. He understood that if there was a will, his plan of inheritance by law ran the risk of going up in smoke. But he didn't dare do anything stupid. My gaze was too firm, and I already had my hand on the phone. Let's go, love! Sarah pulled her husband, trembling. Let's go! Let's think of something else. This old man is crazy. They left backing towards the door without daring to turn their backs on me, but I knew they wouldn't give up. The wounded beast is the most dangerous. And tonight was only the first act. The door slammed shut. I let myself fall into the chair. My heart was beating fast, but not from fear, but from the released tension. I had declared war. Outside in the car, running but not moving, the air must have been as stale as in a crypt. Will? Damn it! Why is there a will? Sarah screamed, hitting the dashboard of the car. If the old woman left a will, she surely left us nothing. She hated me. Lucas rested his head on the steering wheel, bathed in sweat. His phone vibrated again. Another message from Razor. This time it was the photo of a bloody knife. Monday, Lucas murmured. Dad said Monday they read the will. Today is Thursday. We don't have time, Sarah. Tomorrow is the deadline. The shark is going to kill me. Well, we have to do something. Sarah turned, grabbing her husband by the collar of his shirt and shaking him. Don't stand there whining like a woman. Think. What do I do? Dad knows everything. He won't sign the sale. Sarah let him go, narrowing her eyes with a poisonous look. If he doesn't sign, we sign. Lucas raised his head suddenly. What do you mean? Forging the signature, whispered Sarah with a voice cold as a snake. You already forged your mother's. Why not your father's? Is there any old paper with his signature at home? Yes, in the old files in the trunk. Get them out. We are going to forge a total power of attorney. I know a corrupt notary on the outskirts. For money, he does whatever. He doesn't need the owner to be there. With that power, tomorrow early, we go to the bank or the public registry. We put the house in our name or mortgage it before lawyer Mendoza opens that damn will. Lucas swallowed hard. But that is a federal crime, Sarah. If we get caught, it's jail for sure. Do you prefer jail or for Razor to cut off your hands and throw you in the river? Sarah glared at him. It is a dead end, Lucas. Either we risk it, grab the money, and flee far away, or we stay here waiting for death. Lucas looked at the cell phone screen, the photo of the knife. Fear of dying beat fear of the law. All right, Lucas nodded with eyes injected with madness. We do it. Tonight. Tomorrow we act early. The truck accelerated and disappeared into the rain, taking with it a final dark conspiracy. From the second-floor window I drew back the curtain and saw the red taillights moving away. I didn't hear their conversation, but I could guess it. I picked up the phone and dialed Mendoza's number. Although it was late, I knew my old friend was still awake. Hello, Mendoza. It's me, George. What's up, George? Tomorrow I want you to do something. Send an urgent notice to all notaries and the public registry of the city. Block any transaction in my name or Elizabeth's, even if they bring a power of attorney. Do you suspect they are going to forge papers? I don't suspect, I replied, looking at the Black Knight. I'm sure. The cornered rat looks for any hole to escape, but this time I'm going to plug all the exits. Agreed, I'll handle it first thing. Take care of yourself. Don't worry. I'm waiting to see how they put the noose around their own necks all by themselves. I hung up. This would be a long night, but tomorrow the sun would rise, and the light of truth would burn all their dirty traps. I turned to my wife's altar and lit another incense. The smell of copals spread, soft and calm. Rest, old girl, I whispered. It's all about to end. Monday, 9 in the morning. Lawyer Mendoza's office, located on the 5th floor of an old but imposing building in the center of the city. The ceiling fan turned boom-boom, rhythmically cutting the suffocating silence of the boardroom. Lucas and Sarah had arrived early. They sat in front of the desk, their backs rigid, but their eyes couldn't hide the nervousness. Lucas wore an old black suit with the collar of his shirt somewhat wrinkled, and he didn't stop wringing his hands. Sarah had put on more makeup than necessary to cover the deep, dark circles of several sleepless nights due to fear of the collectors and their failed plans. Their plan to forge papers on Friday morning had gone to hell at the door of the notary's office when the system flagged property in litigation. Now their only hope was the paper resting on lawyer Mendoza's desk. I was sitting on the other side drinking hot tea, calm as a rock. Mendoza cleared his throat and adjusted his reading glasses on the bridge of his nose. He opened the envelope sealed with red wax. The sound of tearing paper sounded dry like the cocking of a gun. Ladies and gentlemen, answered the final and legal witness of Mrs. Elizabeth drafted on June 15th of this year, before 2 independent witnesses and a psychiatrist to certify that she was in full use of her mental faculties. Lucas swallowed loudly. Gulp. Sarah leaned forward, scratching the polished wood table with her fingernails. Clause 1 read, Mendoza, regarding the assets and furniture consisting of the current house on Juarez Street, the family land in the village, and all bank savings, he paused, looking at them over his glasses. I, Elizabeth, decide to leave the entirety to my husband, Mr. George, as the sole universal heir with full powers of dominion. It seemed like all the air had been sucked out of the room. Lucas opened his mouth to the floor. Sarah's face went from pale to red as a tomato. "What?" hissed Sarah. "Read carefully. Surely there is a mistake. By law, the son gets the legitimate share." "Silence, ma'am." Mendoza raised his hand, hardening his voice. "I haven't finished. Clause 2." He read the following, every word like a nail in the coffin. "I decide to disinherit my son Lucas, in accordance with Article 342 of the Civil Code, for the cause of serious lack of filial obligations, abandonment of his parents during illness, and for having consummated the appropriation of assets before my death through the debts that I had to pay on his behalf." "Lie!" Lucas jumped out of the chair, knocking it to the ground. "My mother would never write that. It's you. You and my dad agreed to invent this. What a mess." Mendoza calmly took another sheet out of the folder. "This is the detailed list of the debts that Mrs. Elizabeth paid for you in the last 5 years. A total of $1.2 million. This amount far exceeds the inheritance that would have corresponded to you." She left a clear note. "Consider this as if I have already distributed the inheritance to my son in advance, to pay his life debts." Lucas looked at the list. The numbers danced before his eyes. Gambling, money for cars, money burned on ghost projects. He couldn't deny anything. Sarah wasn't going to accept defeat so easily. She launched herself, trying to snatch the will. "Scammers! You are scammers. I'm going to sue. I'm going to take this to the Supreme Court. Do it." I spoke for the first time in the meeting. My voice was pure ice. "But before suing, you should hear the last clause." Mendoza nodded at me and continued reading. Clause 3. "If my son or my daughter-in-law incur in any act of dispute, threat, or insult towards my husband, after my death, the entirety of the money I leave to charity, in case Mr. George passes away, will be used to hire lawyers and countersue them for the crime of elder abuse." With all the evidence I have kept, Sarah froze. Her jaw locked. "Evidence?" whispered Lucas. "Mom?" Mom had evidence of what? I took the small black notebook out of the inside pocket of my jacket. "Your mother's diary," I said, holding it up high, "and the recordings of when you insulted her. Do you want me to play them for the police, Lucas?" Lucas collapsed in the chair like a puppet whose strings are cut. He understood everything. His mother wasn't blind. His mother just kept silent. And her silence was a death sentence hanging over him without him knowing. "The session is closed." Mendoza closed the folder with a dry thud. "Please leave, and remember to vacate the house where you live within a period of 30 days. The eviction order will arrive this afternoon." The parking lot behind the building was deserted. Only the wind could be heard whistling through the broken windows of an abandoned warehouse next door. As soon as I reached my old truck, a brutal hand grabbed my shoulder and pulled me back. It was Lucas. He slammed me against the bodywork. His breath reeked of cheap cigarettes and a crazy fear. Sarah stood behind, arms crossed, watching with a gaze like a dagger. "Dad, you can't do this to me," shouted Lucas, spitting saliva in my face. "You are killing me. Do you know that?" Calmly, I pushed his hand away and dusted the shoulder of my jacket as if removing dust. "I'm not killing you, Lucas. I'm just letting you live the life you chose." Life, my ass. Lucas hit the bed of the truck, leaving a dent. Razor, the drug dealers. They gave me a deadline until today. If I don't have money, they are going to cut off my hands. "Do you want to see your son maimed, or do you want to see my corpse floating in the river? That is your business and your creditors," I replied without flinching. "When you asked for money for the spree, did you ask my opinion? When you bought that designer bag for your wife, while your mother didn't have money for medicine, did you think about this?" "Forget the past," intervened Sarah with a sour voice. "Now is the time to save lives. Old man, give the money. Take it as buying your son's life. After this, we get out of your sight. I swear. Your oaths are worth less than toilet paper." I smiled with contempt. Lucas took a switchblade out of his pocket. The blade came out with a click, shining under the unforgiving sun. "Give me the money," growled Lucas, sticking the knife to my stomach. "I'm not playing Dad. I'm cornered. Don't force me to commit a madness." I looked at the knife and then straight into his eyes. In those eyes, I didn't see the bloodlust of a killer. I only saw extreme cowardice. He was trembling so much that the knife bounced against the fabric of my jacket. "Do it," I said defiantly. "Do it, Lucas. Right here in the heart. Anyway, it already died the night I saw you toasting because your mother had died." Lucas stood stunned. His hand trembled uncontrollably. "Dad, what are you saying?" "Did you think I didn't know?" I took a step forward, pressing my chest against the tip of the knife, making Lucas step back in fright. That night, I was outside the door. I heard it all: dancing on her grave, liberation, put the old man in the asylum. "Do you remember now?" The blood drained from Lucas's face. The knife fell from his hand, hitting the concrete with a dry cling. He backed away, looking at me as if he saw the devil. "Dad, did you hear everything?" "Yes, and that is why I am no longer your father. What kind of blood do I have in common with a beast that celebrates the death of his own mother?" I bent down, picked up the knife, closed it, and threw it into the bushes by the road. "Listen well." I pointed my finger at both their faces. "I don't have a single penny for you. I already transferred all the money to the foundation. Now I only have this old life. If you want it, take it." Lucas collapsed, holding his head and bawling, "Oh God, I'm screwed. Mother of mine, help me." Sarah looked at her husband with absolute contempt. She spat on the ground right at Lucas's feet. "Useless. Coward." Then she turned to me, grinding her teeth. "Very well, old man. You want war? Very well. Don't blame me for being a bitch. Keep your hypocritical morality. Let's see how long your tranquility lasts." Having said that, she pulled Lucas up by jerks and pushed him inside the car. "Let's go." "To the house. I have another idea. We don't need this cursed old man." The car started, screeching tires leaving a cloud of black smoke. I stood there watching until the car disappeared. My heart was beating hard, but not from fear, but from pain. Cutting blood ties is never easy, even if that blood is already rotten. But I knew Sarah hadn't given up. Her other idea would surely be an even worse theater, and I had to be ready to bring down the curtain. That afternoon, the neighborhood where Lucas lives was strangely agitated. Mid-range cars began to park along the sidewalk in front of his house. I received notice from Aunt Maria, that distant relative whom Sarah always despised, but who today curiously was invited to an intimate tea. George whispered Aunt Maria on the phone. "Sarah says that today she is going to present an investment opportunity in land in Florida. She says it gives profits of 30% monthly. She invited all the relatives, old friends, and even the retirees from the teachers' union." "Investment in Florida?" I laughed bitterly. "Where does she get land in Florida?" "Well, that. She says it's a project of Lucas. She says that since they just inherited a fortune from my sister Elizabeth, they want to share the blessing with everyone. She has set up a luxury banquet. It smelled bad to me, and that's why I'm warning you. I understood the problem immediately. A Ponzi scheme, a pyramid scam, or simply borrowing like crazy in a last raid before fleeing. They were using their reputation, although it was already damaged, and the fame of newly inherited to scam naive people. If I didn't stop them, those relatives and old friends who saved all their lives were going to be fleeced. My son's sins would add more hatred from the people. "Aunt Maria," I said sharply, "stay there still. Don't give her a dime. I'm on my way." I drove to Lucas's house. It was already getting dark. The house shone with all the lights on. Soft music was heard very different from the darkness of last night. I parked on the corner and watched. Through the large window I saw Sarah moving like a bee among the guests. She wore a fire-red dress, gold jewelry, surely fake or borrowed glass in hand and talking her head off. Lucas was by her side, forcing a smile with a folder in his hand, nodding from time to time. There were about 20 people in the living room. There was the elderly neighbor, the distant cousin, and some former partners of Lucas. Everyone listened attentively to Sarah's presentation. I got out of the car with my briefcase under my arm. The gate was open to receive the victims. I entered the patio, the gravel crunching under my feet. Inside, Sarah's shrill voice resonated. "As you know, Uncle's cousins My mother-in-law has just passed away, leaving my husband a very large inheritance. But we don't want to keep it all. We invested in this resort a long time ago, and now is the profit stage. But Lucas interrupted an uncle. I heard you were very indebted lately, right? Sarah snatched the word from him. Oh, uncle, pure gossip from envious people. Look, just look, what a mansion, what luxuries, what debts. Today we are raising capital, only to expand. Whoever puts 100,000 today next month receives 130,000 in cash, guaranteed by the honor of the family. The honor of the family. I pushed the door and entered. The heavy oak door opened and hit the wall with a dry bang. The honor of which family, Sarah? Of the family of those who eat dead meat? The room fell silent. All eyes were fixed on the door. The music stopped. Sarah dropped the glass from her hand. The red wine spread on the white carpet like a puddle of fresh blood. Dad? Blurted Lucas, pale as wax. He backed away and crashed into the snack table, knocking over a plate with a crash. I walked towards the center of the room, slowly, with dignity. My gray suit contrasted totally with the flashy falseness of that hall. George? Aunt Maria stood up. What are you doing here? I come to save your wallets, ladies and gentlemen, I said loudly, sweeping the guests with my gaze, and to see how far my daughter-in-law's play goes. Get out, shouted Sarah, launching herself to push me. This is my house. You are not invited. I raised my hand and brushed her off with a gentle gesture. Your house? No way, Sarah. This morning the judge issued the eviction order, didn't he? Didn't you get the notice? Murmurs began to fill the room. Eviction? What does that mean? Didn't they inherit the house? Calm down, everyone. I put the briefcase on the table, right where Lucas was. Let me show you what the great fortune my son inherited is. I opened the briefcase and took out the statements, with red stamps, that Marisol had printed for me. I spread them on the table as if dealing cards. Here you have. I pointed to each sheet. Credit card debt, 500,000. Football betting debt, 300,000. Expired bank. Seizure notice from 6 months ago. Look, come and see. This is your famous Florida project. The guests curious began to take the papers. They passed them from hand to hand. The "Oh God, my mother, good Lord" sounded everywhere. Heavens, they are drowning in debt and say they are going to invest. Lucas. Did you want to make me look stupid? Lucas trembled in a corner, incapable of articulating a word. Sweat ran down his face in streams. Sarah kept trying to scream. That is false. This old man is lying. He hates me and wants to ruin us. Lie? I smiled coldly. Then is this also a lie? I took the digital recorder out of my pocket. I had copied the audio from Elizabeth's cell phone so it could be heard better. I held it up for everyone to see. Listen to whose voice this is. I pressed play. The static sound played for a moment, and then Sarah's poisonous voice was heard clear, unmistakable. Damn, old woman. Die already to free us from the debt. Your medicines are very expensive. Sell the land. I need money for my new car. Why do you last so long, huh? Then Lucas's voice, weak but complicit. Enough, my love. Lower your voice. But, Mom, give us the money now. I need to pay. And finally the tombstone phrase of the previous night. Cheers, my love, to dance on her grave. The room went cold. Disgust was drawn on the face of every guest. Aunt Maria covered her mouth, crying. Damned wretches. An old uncle roared and smashed his glass against the floor. If I had known they were this kind of trash, I wouldn't set foot here. Give me back my advance right now. Another went at Lucas, grabbing him by the lapel. Ungrateful, may God punish you. The scene became chaos. The guests, decent people, were furious. They felt insulted, cheated, and disgusted by the moral rot of the couple. Sarah stood in the middle, white with trembling lips. She looked everywhere looking for support, but only received looks of contempt. She knew the show was over. The velvet curtain had torn, revealing the rotten stage behind. I turned off the recorder and put it away. Leave everyone, I said with sadness. Don't throw your money away. There is no investment here. There is only Mud. The guests left in a flock without ceasing to utter curses, and spit as they passed in front of the couple. In a short time the huge room was left alone, with the three of us and the disaster. As soon as the door closed behind the last guest, a loud noise came from the patio, a screeching of tires, screech followed by the roar of the iron gate being kicked. 3 huge guys with unfriendly faces entered. In front was the one with the long scar, Razor, the shark's dog. Seeing them, Lucas's legs went weak. He fell to the floor and wet his pants. The smell of urine filled the air. "Time's up," Lucas said, Razor, with an icy voice, tapping a baseball bat against his hand. "Where is the sister?" I, stammered Lucas, chattering his teeth. "No, I don't have—" "You don't have?" Razor laughed, looking at the luxurious living room. "Then I collect myself," he signaled his goons. "Take everything, TV, fridge, computers, paintings, everything that can be sold, even that old lady's ring." Sarah screamed when one of the guys brutally ripped off her wedding ring and necklace. "No, it's my inheritance." "Help me." She looked at me with desperation, pleading. I remained motionless. "This is your business," I said dryly. "I have nothing to do with it." Razor looked at me and nodded with a kind of respect, or maybe he knew I wasn't the debtor and didn't mess with old people. He turned to Lucas. "This only covers the interest for this month. I'm taking the truck outside too, and the capital figure out how you do it. I come back next week. If there is no money, get a kidney ready." They dismantled the house like a hurricane. In 15 minutes, the house that Sarah boasted as high class was empty. Only broken chairs and trash remained. When the noise of the collector's truck moved away, silence returned. But this time, it was a silence of death. Sarah was sitting on the floor, disheveled, her makeup running, making her look like a ghost. She looked at the empty house, and then at Lucas, curled up in his own puddle of urine. Her look changed. From fear it went to contempt and absolute cruelty. She got up. She went to the bedroom, where the collectors hadn't checked the clothes well. Minutes later, she came out pulling a suitcase. "Ah, where are you going?" Lucas raised his head weak. "Far from this dump," answered Sarah curtly. "I've put up with you enough, Lucas. I thought that marrying you, I would have life solved by your rich dad. But I got a useless man in debt up to his neck. But we are husband and wife. You swore. Swore my ass?" Sarah spat. "Money ran out. Love ran out. Fix it yourself. Don't look for me. I'm going to my town." She dragged the suitcase towards the door, passing in front of me without even looking at me. The sound of the wheels on the floor sounded clack, 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 and moved away. Lucas tried to crawl after her. "Sarah, don't leave me. I'm scared. Sarah!" But his wife's figure disappeared into the night. Now only my son and I remained. I looked at him, lying there pathetic, alone in ruin. No wife, no money, no honor, no house, because tomorrow the closure seal would arrive. He raised his tearful eyes to me. "Dad, Dad, I made a mistake. Save me." I looked at him with a squeezed heart, but a firm mind. "You didn't make a mistake, Lucas. You just chose the wrong path. And now you reach the end of that path." I put the court eviction order on the floor in front of him. "Tomorrow people from the court come to put the seals. You have 1 night to get your clothes out. Go." "Where am I going to go? I have nowhere to go," he cried, screaming. "That is the first lesson of being a man." "Lucas," I said, turning towards the door, "find your own way. Your mother and I led you by the hand for too long. I left that house in ruins. The air outside was fresh. I took a deep breath. The pain was still there. But I had taken a weight off my shoulders. Justice was done. But the price was a shattered family. Even so, it is better to rebuild on ashes than to live in a castle of quicksand. Tomorrow, I start my new life. Just me and Elizabeth's memory. That was the longest night in Lucas's life, and perhaps also the longest in my mind. The next morning at 8 o'clock sharp, the people from the court and the bank arrived. They worked cold and professional like robots. They put the cross tapes on the door. The bright yellow sign, "Property Embargoed," hung on the gate, standing out cruelly in the quiet street. Lucas was standing on the sidewalk carrying a black garbage bag with some wrinkled clothes, the only thing he could grab before being thrown out. He looked at the house that was his pride, now turned into a soulless concrete block that prohibited his entry. Where will he go? I asked myself, spying on him through the crack of my curtain. I didn't go out. I didn't want my own pity to ruin the lesson. Lucas wandered aimlessly through the streets. He called his buddies, those with whom he toasted and swore eternal loyalty in drunkenness. Hello, Peter. It's Lucas. I'm stuck. Give me a chance to stay a few days. Beep, beep, beep. The number you dialed is not available. Hello, Michael. It's me. You? No way. I heard you got involved with the mafia. Don't call me. I don't want trouble. Bye. The whole world turned its back on him. Or rather, the fantasy world he bought with money vanished when his wallet became empty. That night, Lucas slept at an old bus stop near Alameda Park. It was drizzling. The cold wind crept through his thin shirt. For the first time in his life, the spoiled child knew what hunger that scratches the guts and cold that soaks the bones is. He searched his bag and found a piece of stale bread from yesterday. He ate it with desperation, with salty tears falling on the mouthful. There was an old bum on the bench next to him. Seeing Lucas shivering, he threw him an old newspaper. Cover yourself with that, son. Tonight is going to be a bitch. Lucas took the newspaper, looked at the dirty bum, and then looked at himself. The distance between Mr. Lucas and Lucas the indigent was as thin as this promissory note. Thank you, he murmured. New on the street? Asked the old man, smoking a butt he found. Yes, I lost everything. Lost money? The old man let out a toothless laugh. Money is made again. The bad thing is losing people. Look at me, I had a house car, but I beat my wife and chased my children away, and now I am here. That is losing everything, bastard. The bum's phrase was a bucket of ice water for Lucas. He remembered his mother, the hot soup she made him when he got sick, the disappointed look of his father yesterday. He had lost his people. He had lost the only ones who truly loved him. Lucas curled up under the newspaper, crying like an abandoned child. But this time no one came to comfort him. 3 days later it was raining cats and dogs, as if the sky were falling. A tropical storm hit the city, flooding the streets. I was reading by the fireplace, looking for peace in the pages of an old book, when I heard a weak knock, knock on the door. They weren't knocks with knuckles. It seemed like someone was bumping against the wood. I grabbed my cane and went out. I opened the door a crack. A black lump was curled up in my entrance, shaking violently. The rain hit him without mercy. Who is it? I asked loudly. The lump moved. A face lifted up, pale, cadaverous, with a dirty beard, lips purple from the cold. It was Lucas. He no longer looked human. Clothes in tatters, one shoe missing the other, surely carried away by the current. Dad, he whispered so weak that the rain almost ate his voice. Let me in. I'm dying. My heart shrank. The father instinct screamed loud. I wanted to go out, carry him, put him in, warm him up, give him soup. But I stopped. If I did that, everything would go back to the beginning. He would be a parasite again. He would think that no matter how serious the sin is, Dad always opens his arms. I opened the door a little more, but stayed blocking the way. Get under the porch roof, I said cold, although my hands were trembling. Lucas crawled to the roof, leaning against the brick wall, panting. I'm hungry. 3 days without eating. I went inside. I took out a large towel, a carton of milk, and half a loaf of bread. I went out and put it next to him. He threw himself on the food like an animal swallowing bread and milk desperately. When he finished, he looked at me with sunken and tearful eyes. Dad, I know I messed up. I am a wretch. It is my punishment. He cried, mixing tears with rain. My wife left me, my friends spit on me, collectors hunt me. I have nothing. Let me come home. Please, Dad, I will be your servant, if you want. I looked at him with a broken soul, but shook my head. This house does not accept people who celebrate their mother's death, Lucas. I am repentant, I swear. I understand, now. He knelt, hugging my legs. Do you repent because you lost the money? Or do you repent because your mother hurts you? I asked, looking at him fixedly. He remained silent. I... You still don't understand. I sighed. Do you think hunger and cold are the punishment? No. The real punishment is conscience, and you still don't have enough conscience for it to hurt. I took the little black notebook out of my pocket. Elizabeth's legacy. I am not going to give you money. I am not going to let you in, but I am going to give you this. I put the diary in his hand. It is your mother's diary. Take it. Find a dry place and read it. Read so you know how your mother lived, and how she died because of you. If after reading it you still miss only the money, then never come back. Lucas took the notebook, trembling. Go, I said, and closed the door. I leaned against the wood, slid to the floor, and cried, covering my face. Elizabeth, did I do right? Am I too cruel? Outside the rain kept falling, but the wailing stopped. Only footsteps dragging away were heard. Lucas found shelter under the roof of an old electrical substation at the end of the street. Under the yellow light of the lamp trembling, he opened the notebook. The sheets were somewhat damp, but Mom's handwriting was clear and familiar. He started reading. March 10th. Lucas came to eat. He said the ribs and sauce were delicious. It had been a long time since he said something nice to me. I am so happy I forgot to take the heart pill. May God protect my son in his businesses. Lucas touched the sheet. That day he went home only to flatter her, so she would sign the bank guarantee. He praised the food only to soften her up. May 12th. The daughter-in-law said I'm a burden. Lucas said nothing. He just ate looking at the plate. I know he is between a rock and a hard place. I don't blame him. I blame myself for being old and useless. Tonight my chest hurts a lot, but I don't want to wake George. He worries too much. Mom, sobbed Lucas. That day he heard Sarah insult her, but fell silent for fear that his wife would get angry. His silence was the stab in his mother's heart. August 20th. Today is Lucas's birthday. I sold Grandma's earrings to buy him the watch he liked, but he didn't come. He went partying with his friends. He sent me a message. You're too old for parties. Deposit me and that's it. Son, I just wanted to make you your lucky noodles. Oh, God, my God, what kind of animal am I? Lucas screamed, hitting the brick wall until his knuckles bled. The physical pain was nothing compared to the pain that split him inside. He kept reading. Every page was proof of his mother's immense, blind, and painful love. She knew everything. She knew he lied, that he stole, that he despised her. But she kept loving him. She sacrificed herself for him until the last breath. And the last page, the day she died. Lucas, if you read this, I want you to know that I never got angry with you. I only leave sad because I cannot accompany you to help you correct your path. Live well, son. Love your father. Don't let money blind you. I love you. I forgive you. She forgives me. Lucas hugged the notebook against his chest, banging his forehead against the cold concrete. He cried. Not the cry of poor me of when he was kicked out. It was the heart-wrenching cry of a child who lost his mother. The cry of regret that arrives late. For the first time he felt disgust for himself. He realized he didn't deserve to be called human, much less a son. Mom, I was wrong. Forgive me. He stayed there crying until he ran dry, until the rain stopped and dawn painted the horizon. When the first ray of sun hit his sucked face, his eyes had changed. There was no more greed. There was no more cowardice. Only deep sadness and determination. He got up, put the diary in his shirt pocket next to his heart. He wiped his face and walked. Not back to Dad's house to beg. He walked towards the wholesale market. He had to rebuild his life. Not for money, but to deserve his mother's forgiveness. 6 months have passed. My life has returned a little to its course, to a new tranquility. I sold the house of memories, that place where too many ghosts of the past lived. With the money from the sale and everything Elizabeth left, I kept a small part enough to buy a simple little house on the outskirts with a good piece of garden to plant. The majority of the remaining money I used to create the Elizabeth Foundation, a small organization dedicated to giving legal support and shelter to elderly people who have been mistreated or abandoned by their own children. Every day I go to the foundation office and listen to heartbreaking stories from old friends who suffer the same as I suffered. I help them recover their heritage, to recover their dignity. I feel Elizabeth smiles at me every time I manage to get someone out of that hell in life. And Lucas. I haven't gone to look for him, but news about him reaches me through acquaintances. They say they have seen him working as a loader at the supply center. He is burned by the sun, skinny with hands full of calluses. He works like a mule from 3 in the morning until sunset. On one occasion, an old friend bumped into him eating a miserable taco on the sidewalk and wanted to give him a few dollars. But Lucas refused. I have hands and feet. I can fend for myself, sir. I am paying my debts. And not only is he paying money debts, I heard that every month he anonymously deposits a small amount to go paying back the people he and his wife scammed with that ghost project. He is paying his debt with life. One afternoon, I went to the supermarket and saw him in the distance. He was arranging shopping carts. He looks much older. He already has gray hair, although he is not even 40. But his back is straight. His gaze is no longer elusive. Now it is serene. He saw me. He stopped for an instant. I also stopped. He didn't run to hug my legs to ask for money. He simply bowed his head in a deep greeting full of respect and turned around in silence to continue his work. I stood looking at my son's sweat-soaked back and felt an emotion difficult to explain. It wasn't exactly pride, but a great relief. The rotten tree had been felled, and from that knotty root, a new sprout, rough but honest, was starting to be born. I didn't call him. It is not the moment yet. Let time and sweat wash all the stains from his soul. When he truly stands firm on his own feet, the door of my house will open again, but it will open to receive a man, not a big spoiled child. The following spring, I am standing in the small garden of my new house. The earth here is loose and smells of fresh grass. Today is the first anniversary of Elizabeth's death. I didn't hold any banquet. I didn't invite anyone either. It's just me and a little tree I just brought. A lemon tree. In life, Elizabeth always dreamed of having a lemon tree in the garden. She used to say, for when you have a cough, old man, I prepare you a lemon tea with honey. And for the broth, I just go out to the garden, cut some leaves, and it smells like glory. I dug a small hole and placed the root ball carefully. I filled with earth. I tamped it down around the trunk and watered those tender green leaves with fresh water. The spring sun warmed the garden, making the water drops on the lemon leaves shine like jewels. I took out my wicker chair and sat next to the tree. I poured myself 2 cups of tea, one for me, and the other I put on the grass next to me. Honey, I whispered to the soft breeze, today I planted your lemon tree. A year late, don't reproach me, okay? The wind whispered among the branches as if it were her mischievous giggle. Everything is fine, Elizabeth. I am still strong. The foundation is going smoothly. We help a lot of people. The money you saved with so much effort was not wasted. I took a sip of my tea, looking towards the horizon, and Lucas is rebuilding his life. It is costing him blood, but he has already learned to be human. I think you can be calm now. I took a small envelope out of my pocket. It is a letter that Lucas left at my gate this morning. He didn't dare ring the bell. Inside there are no pleas, only a photo of him holding his first debt-free paycheck, accompanied by a note with scrawled handwriting. Thank you, Dad, for not saving me. Thank you for letting me read Mom's diary. I am living, Dad. Truly living. I smiled and folded the letter. How curious life is. Sometimes the greatest act of love is not to give, but to take away. I took away my son's comfort to give him back his self-love. I took away my wife's suffered silence to give her back her dignity. I closed my eyes, enjoying the sun and the aroma of the earth. Rest, my love. Rest in peace, my love. From today on, no one will ever dare to dance on your grave again. There will only be flowers and green fruits. I sat there for a long time until the sunset painted the garden a deep violet. Inside me, the storm has passed. Only eternal peace remains. If this story has captivated you, like the video, subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click on the box to the left of the screen. Thanks for watching.